I was telling Mark this last time we talked. This is the first time ever, I think, Mark, that someone else has programmed a guest on the show.
Yeah, I just took the reins.
He took the reins.
A while later, like, wait a minute, this isn't how this works, because I've been asked to be on programmed months, and like those people aren't even on the episode.
Well, see, that's the thing. In Mike White March, he normally is,
right?
And I always extend the invitation. If you program a month, I would hope you would want to be on the month, because why are you programming the movies otherwise? Unless it's just like, I think you'd like these movies.
Right.
But as opposed to this movie, Mr. Begley, Jesus Christ. So on this episode of the Kulturecast, I am joined once again by Mark Begley of Wake Up Heavy and, like I kind of hinted at, Mr. Anthony King of the Cult Movies Podcast, a newcomer here in this space we call the Kulturecast, a movie podcast. A movie podcast. A movie, podcast, question mark?
Any movie
podcast. And we're closing out Begley on Begley month with a look at 1979's Hardcore.
A controversial subject. A brilliant actor. A powerful and touching film. A movie which will take you into a world never dealt with in a major motion picture. A father searches for his missing daughter, only to find she has been used in a sordid and shocking way. Nothing you have ever done, seen, or imagined can prepare you for the experience of hardcore.
Turn it off!
George C. Scott. Hardcore.
Turn it off!
So before we talk about the movie, Anthony, tell my listeners a little bit about your show before we talk about Turn It Off! Turn It Off! Which Mike did a very good impersonation of last week. But tell my listeners a little bit about your show.
The Cult Movies Podcast is based on Danny Perry's books called the Cult Movies. He's got 3 of them. And each week I have a different guest come on. They pick a movie we're in the first book right now, so they pick a movie from the book. We discuss that movie, and then the second half of the show is us picking other movies that we would recommend as pairings with that movie. And let's see, I'm in season 3 now, so I'm up into the 50s, and we are halfway through the first book, which is awesome. And by the time this comes out, you'll hear
this will come out tomorrow. This comes out tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow!
Oh boy! I said a very quick turnaround for my.
Yeah.
I do a weekly podcast where I record it the same week I release it. Yeah. I'm a truly fucking psychotic.
But, for instance, last night, this is great. This is like I'm having a George C. Scott little week here. Last night, I recorded an episode on Petulia, and then we talked about the hospital, too. And a lot of George C. Scott. And I can never get tired of that guy. And just realized he's probably in my top 5 all-time favorite actors after the past couple weeks watching a bunch of George C. Scott movies. So, it's really fun. Going through these books, you come across, like classics like Citizen Kane or Casablanca, but then you get these gems like Two for the Road or like Petulia or like Outrageous. And it's a great mix. And I've loved the guests that we've had. So I only have 150 more episodes to go.
And you'll have to figure out something else to do or circle back.
Yeah, we'll just redo it. That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Same movies. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
I'm surprised that it's funny to hear that Citizen Kane is in that book.
Yeah, we haven't done Citizen Kane yet, but it's
neither had Mark and I until last year.
Yeah. First time watches last year.
Yeah.
With Dan, it's all about it kind of goes back to Pauline Kael's Raising Cain essay and how she sort of started this cult. It wasn't received well when it was first released, and then she came out with her essay in the 70s, and this devoted, like, passionate fan base came forward, and so that's kind of why Danny included it in the book. And now, widely considered the greatest movie of all time, right? And it is weird to see some of these movies considered to be cult movies, but like Casablanca, for instance, people are like, that's not a cult movie. Well, it has a devoted cult, especially back in the 60s and the 50s. There were like people who would dress up like, how people would do Mad Men parties. They would dress up like Bogey and like Bergman, and they'd go to screenings and then go to coffee shops and bars afterwards in Boston and have these like powwows of Casablanca, discussions and stuff. So technically it does have a cult following. So it is a cult movie, which is really fun to read about.
I honestly would like to be a fly on the wall of that Nighthawks-esque diner. Jesus-esque Christ. Do you think that they were doing that for this film, though? Do you think that they dress up like George C. Scott in Hardcore, and they just stare at a screen and go, "Turn it on"?
They dress up like him when he's acting like he's a producer of a porno, because that's an awesome costume.
So fucking hot. I've never been so attracted to George C. Scott in my entire life.
Got a great mustache.
Right. So, Mark, before we talk about the movie, I am curious, why? Why, oh, why?
This was, I was trying, I think this was what's the least amount of screen time that Ed Begley Jr. could possibly have. And really, it's a glorified cameo. And I think
if that even.
Right, I think it's because he and Paul Schrader are pals. And he probably said, "Hey, Ed, I'm shooting in LA. Why don't you come be a soldier in a porno movie in this film I'm making?" And Ed Begley Jr. said, "Oh, sure, Paul. I'll do that."
At least he didn't have to drop a fucking Southern accent.
Yeah. I picked this one because he's in it, obviously, but this is a movie, I kind of touched on this a little bit at the end of last week's episode. This is a movie that spooked me as a kid. It was one of those where I thought, oh, I'm not taking a chance on renting this and taking it home and having my mom or dad walk in. And it's not quite as lurid as I assumed it would be, yet it's still pretty lurid. If I had been caught with this, it would not have been okay. But
there were a couple scenes you might have gotten in trouble with if your mom had come in when Susan Hubley's got her legs asunder. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
I'm
the
Big
thing.
Dick Black.
I got a big ass dick.
Or just any of the homemade 8mm pornos. But that angle, when I finally did see it, which was sometime in June of 2020, it played on TCM Underground, and I had been trying to watch it for a while. And 2020 was my Paul Schrader year. I was catching up on a lot of his films that I hadn't seen yet, and just sort of coincided with them playing it on TCM Underground. So I recorded it. That's the version I still have it on my DVR, and was really surprised by the Calvinism angle. And I knew that Paul Schrader had been raised Calvinist. He mentions it in most interviews that I've read. And I've had the Taxi Driver. I used to have the Taxi Driver Laserdisc that had a Paul Schrader and Martin Scorsese commentary tracks. And he brings it up there. And so I didn't know much about Calvinism. I grew up in a Protestant home, but it's not as kind of cut and dry and hardcore, to use that term, for religion as Calvinism. It's a little bit easier on things. And I think grace falls into that a little bit more than it does in Calvinism. But anyway, that angle surprised me. And it's just one of those 70s Paul Schrader films. I put this, Rolling Thunder, and Taxi Driver into an unofficial trilogy. And they're offshoots of each other, where Rolling Thunder is, like an extension of the Travis Bickle story. This to me is an extension of the Iris Steensma story, the Jodie Foster character from Taxi Driver, where I almost feel like it's her after she's gone back home, been saved by Travis Bickle, gets restless again, and leaves, disappears after this trip in LA. And there's even a character named Steensma in the movie, which the first time I watched it, I was like, whoa, probably somebody he knew growing up had that last name, and he keeps using it. But I was just fascinated by that angle, and that scene between George C. Scott's character and Susan Hubley's character, where he explains the basic dogma of Calvinism, was really fascinating to me in amongst this lurid story.
So, Anthony, was this the first time you'd seen this movie?
Oh no, I adore this movie, and I had wanted to see it for years, and then Indicator put out a Blu-ray, and so I got that, and so that was the first time I watched it. I don't know, 4 years ago maybe, and I usually watch it once a year. There's a handful of movies that I'll rewatch once a year, and they're all extremely dark. And I don't know why, but I just I find these types of films comforting for some reason. And Hardcore is no different. I love this movie, and I've written about it a bunch. I've done other podcasts on it, and I don't know, something about this movie that it's got to be George C. Scott, because he's playing this guy. He's not a bad guy. And that's, I think people, and Mark, I'm like you, I was raised actually Presbyterian, but not crazy Calvinist. So pretty moderate Protestant. But, Calvin, of course, Presbyterianism is based on what Calvin created. And so I knew who this guy was. And so when I watched Hardcore for the first time, I was like, oh my God, that is really interesting how I've heard a lot of this language that George C. Scott says in the movie. That scene in the airport is fabulous, where they're talking about grace. I heard that. I learned that when I was a kid.
Right.
And I just thought it was really interesting, set against, like you said, Mark, this incredibly dark story. And but I love the characters that, especially in the later 60s and the 70s and the 80s, where George C. Scott is, he's kind of coming to grips with his own aging, the changing of the times. And he's playing characters doing the same thing. So like in Petulia, it's in the midst of the Vietnam War and swinging 60s, and he's coming to terms with things are changing so drastically, and he's in this existential crisis. Like The Changeling, he's in that. Exorcist 3, he's going through that type of thing. And I love that he embraced that character in these like 20 years. Especially 20, 25 years. And he leaned into that because I feel like he was actually kind of going through that. And so he could really relate to these characters, and they come off very real. Exorcist 3 is a fantastical movie. It's a fantastic movie, but it is so like absurd, of course. But his character, the detective, is still so real and relatable. And I think that's George C. Scott. And so that's why I probably revisit Hardcore so often, is that he's such a comforting, very real character. Like he's somebody that I would know.
That's fair. Yeah. So this was the first time that I had seen it, but I think to your point, Anthony, especially with George C. Scott, the roles that he was taking on at this kind of the changing time of Hollywood, it is kind of double meaning, right? Like you said, it's the role, but it's also his role in the world at the time, which is interesting when you kind of juxtapose the two against one another. And then obviously you look at this movie with the juxtaposition of Calvinism and I guess the subculture of pornography, or just porn in general. Because again, they're both seemingly bound by similar strict rules, it would seem. Because, I mean, you see when he walks into those, I guess you would call them brothels, but that might be even might even be giving them too much credit.
I saw the term rap parlor.
Rap parlor.
Right, rap parlor, yeah. Every time he goes into one of those, and I think he goes into either 2 or 3, they say the same thing, like the exact same thing. They're reiterating the same thing. And then when he's at home with his Calvinists and his family and everybody else, you know, he's repeating the same things over and over again. And he keeps repeating the same things about Calvinism. And, you know, he won't lower himself to the level of the porno industry people until he absolutely has to. And then it clearly kills him to have to do so. But I think the interesting thing that I found about this movie is, I'm not going to say I was expecting more, because I think that's the movie's fault in a lot of ways, that you expect more than you get. Because I like the premise, I like George C. Scott, but I think the execution leaves a little bit to be desired, especially in the third act. The climax of the movie is, it's not bad, it's tonally inconsistent with at least the first act and the second act, but it goes in a direction that I wasn't expecting, because the rest of the movie is so well written and well directed that the third act kind of isn't as nuanced, and it goes in a little bit of a more aggressive direction than the movie had been. I mean, the movie could have gone there from the get-go, given that this is kind of exploring the seedier underbelly of 70s LA, but the way the movie ends up kind of concluding, I was a little taken aback that it seemed a little sloppy and or lazy. Like a different movie, like a movie not as well written as this one has been up until that point.
This is a 4.5 star movie out of 5 stars for me. That half star is the ending, because it feels rushed. It feels lazy. I'm with you. I'm
not sure you could walk away from this movie and think that the ending is satisfactory, given how strong everything else is up until those last 20 minutes.
I've always wanted it to go as dark as possible at the end. I don't know about you guys, but like, it's leading up to like some tragic thing, but then it's just all too quaint for me, where
he says, ejects at the last moment.
Do you want to come home with me? Yes. And then like, that's not where we were going. And
it's even limper than that. It's not, do you want to come home with me? It's, do you want me to leave you alone?
Right.
And she goes, well, no. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, just like you said, Anthony, like, what was the entire point of this movie? What was the entire building emotion of this movie? It was leading to this moment where he doesn't get what he wants, because it is in as many ways his fault as it is hers. You know, nature versus nurture. It's a little bit of both. And if Taxi Driver doesn't have a happy ending, so they gave this movie a happy ending instead.
Right.
Well, and that was a lot of the criticism was leveled, that I read at least, was leveled at the ending, where it turns into action movie tropes instead of, it's not a satisfying psychological ending for the film. I would prefer, and since this is still 70s, 79, I would prefer, he finds her and she does not go home. And it's not even ambiguous. Well, maybe she doesn't really go home with him. It's like, no, I'm not going back to that world. That's your world. This is now mine. And have that be it. And also, even with the way that it's kind of sudden that he finds them, and then masked, the Peter Boyle character shows up and we've got a gunfight. And we're not in Taxi Driver territory where we've had this, slow simmer, boiling rage up until that final shootout. And of course, it's not a shootout like in Taxi Driver, but still, you understand where that movie, when that ending comes, it's not a surprise, because you have seen him reach that level. And of course, this isn't George C. Scott going on a kill crazy rampage at the end, but it's a little less subtle than I think the rest of the film plays out.
Well,
I think I might have liked it more if George C. Scott had gone on a rampage. His daughter saw him doing that and further added fuel to her not coming home.
Yeah.
They could have used it that way, but they even chose to like limp it up. They chose to weaken it even more, to make it even more toothless of an ending. It's a completely toothless ending for a movie that, for all intents and purposes, is baring its teeth for 80, 75 minutes.
When they're at the church and the kids are getting on the bus, just reading her body language, Kristen's body language, the daughter, she doesn't say anything there, but she's facing away from her dad. The head is down the whole time, and she kind of she doesn't pull away when he goes to hug her or put his hand on her shoulder, but she twitches a little bit. And I mean, it's superb acting on Illa Davis's part. Her only movie, by the way, which is surprising. But her body language tells us she knows what she's doing. She's going to go on this trip and she's not coming home. And so when she does end up coming home, I would have preferred that she be basically dead by the end.
Like a junkie.
Exactly.
Yeah, which was that was the ending. I thought that's where this movie was going.
Me
even
too. My first time.
Yeah, even more so than the kind of the limp dick ending or the weak ending or the toothless ending or whatever you want to call it. Of I'm gonna come home and everything's gonna be fine, even though I think we all know everything was not fine. Ron Howard chimes in. I would have preferred that. Like he shows up and she's just like needle hanging out of her arm.
Right.
Like.
I definitely wasn't expecting her to go home first time watch. I figured this is 70s. This is Paul Schrader. We're going to have a nihilistic ending. But it's like, again, referring to Taxi Driver, I always laugh at that towards the end when we have the voiceover of Jodie Foster's dad and the letter that he sent to Travis, and she's back home. And I'm like, she's not going to last there after this. Not that she enjoyed what she was doing in New York, but talk about a completely different kind of lifestyle. She was at least free from oppressive parents there, if maybe nothing else. And to me, this is the same idea. She may go home with him, but it's not going to be too much longer before she is gone again. And it may not be back to LA to do porno. It may just be shacking up with some guy in Grand Rapids.
Right.
It may just be, just moving out with friends or something. She's not going to stay with him at home in his Calvinist household. There's no way. I'm on her side when it comes to this. Like she wants to blossom, and she can't blossom in this world in Grand Rapids, in this Calvinist world, in this kind of overly oppressive house where dad is watching her like a hawk because the other woman that lived with them ran away. He doesn't want that to happen to her. Now, in defense of George C. Scott in this, like I said earlier, he's not a bad guy at all in this. I love how human George C. Scott portrays Archie. He's Archie's Petulia.
Archie Bunker?
Yeah, Jake.
Jake VanDorn.
Jake VanDorn. Even like at the beginning, I really love the beginning sequences, like when he's walking through the mill and he goes to see, even though he is kind of a dick, but with the blue, like the new banner, and he said it's, overbearing, but he's still kind of open to it. This is George C. Scott again, portraying this character of a guy like trying to embrace the changing times, but he's having a really hard time because, he's from the great generation, or maybe even before. I don't know when he was born, but, he wants to be open to the changing times, but he's having the hardest of times embracing that. And I really empathize with that with Jake, and throughout the whole film my heart breaks for him because he just wants his daughter back. And the ending, although it is a limp dick ending, I still feel for him because he he doesn't know. He's like at his most vulnerable there, and he doesn't know what the hell to do. He found his daughter, and he knows that if she comes home, deep down he knows if she comes back home, nothing good is going to happen. She's just going to run away again, whether it is just run out somewhere in Grand Rapids or run back to LA or New York or wherever. But he can't let go of that kind of oppressive idealism that he's lived his entire life. And again, he's not a bad guy. He's not a bad guy, but his way of life is not agreeable with a younger generation.
It's probably not agreeable with a lot of people, possibly the three of us included. It's like you said, he is just overbearing, and the character is written at times with a broad brush and also a very specific brush, because he is being made to assume the role of somewhat Calvinism in general, but then also a very specific kind of person, someone from the Midwest who grew up and again, it's not even Calvinism. You could just, transpose it onto other religions and look at it that way. It is the kind of the same, the loss of oneself and one's place in the world. And then on top of that, you're exacerbating your feelings because of constant, overwhelming levels of religious guilt. And then the religious aspect feeds into everything else. It's interesting because, like you said, he's not a bad guy, but I wouldn't want him to be my dad, because he just doesn't seem like a very, I guess, a nice guy, but he just doesn't seem like the kind of person he claims to be tolerant, but he's only tolerant in as much as he understands why he needs to be tolerant. Mm-hmm. He won't tolerate anything that he doesn't understand, which is essentially what you've been saying, Anthony.
I don't see him as overbearing. I just see him as cold and incapable of showing his daughter love. It's that, and again, growing up in churches, you see a lot of older men, his generation, my dad's generation, maybe even a little bit younger, because my parents were a little bit older than most of my friends' parents. But it's that he doesn't know how to respond to his daughter in any other way than, these are the rules of the church and that's what we live by. It's not like, because it is a strict, Paul Schrader didn't see a movie until he was in his 20s because of his Calvinist upbringing. I was kind of surprised that they're watching TV at the beginning of the film at all, that there's even a TV in the house. The old guy complains about, who makes TV? The people that left here and went to LA. I didn't like them then, and I don't like them now. And it's like, if you think TV's bad, guess what Kristen's going to go do? Right. But it's not, to me, like I don't see him as aggressively overbearing. I just see him as one of those dads that just can't. We don't know why his wife left, but I assume it's for the same reason. He couldn't express love in anything other than, how it's represented by the church. He's wasn't
one of those guys that probably shouldn't have had kids.
Yeah,
he doesn't know how to be it. Yeah, right. But there are. Again, But again, like we've kind of been talking about with the culture passing you by, that is a thing now that's more acceptable, to not want to have kids and be upfront about it, and to not want to get married and to just want to live on your own. Right. Those are things that are much more culturally acceptable than they were in 79. And obviously, again, when you talk about a culture that is being driven by rules set down much longer ago than 1979, obviously we have a real butting of heads culturally, because again, he's a man out of time as a character because of his belief system, but then he's also a man out of place in his own world. So it's just it's interesting. I wish they had mined it more, if that makes sense. Again, that would probably have bogged down the movie in other things that may not have been nearly as exciting, because again, you have a couple conversations about Calvinism. The thing in the airport is obviously the big scene of the movie. I think if they had added more of that, it may have bogged the movie down a little too much, because the movie runs along at a pretty good pace too. It's like an hour and a half. It's not even, I guess it's 15 minutes shy of 2 hours. So it makes the most of its time too.
I would have liked to have seen more of that home life.
Me too.
Because it's,
mean, before
Christmas.
his daughter leaves?
Yeah, just we got Christmas, and then they basically leave the next day. And then not very long after, he's at his friend Wes's, or I guess family, his in-laws' house having dinner. And that's when he gets the call. And then we meet Peter Boyle like right after that. And then it's off to LA and the rest of the story gets started. I could have used some more of that as well. I find that Calvinist stuff interesting.
So do I. I really, and maybe it's because I was born and raised in the Midwest, and I know these people. And I'm not one of those people, but I know these people, and I have family like that. And I've seen, like, with my own eyes, people kind of going through his struggles, not because one of their kids ran away, but like, kind of like you said, Chris, out of time, and they're struggling with that. And I think Schrader does a good job at showing, Jake, compared to everybody else he's surrounded by, his family, like at Christmas, or when that scene when he goes out on the porch a few months after Kristen has run away. He, compared to those people, man, he's totally chill. He's very cool. Everybody else compared to him is extremely strict. And we see those other men, they don't know how to express emotions other than in a negative way, like that guy with the TV. He's just like, this is pissing me off. So nobody gets to watch the TV. And I'm going to tell you why, because these people are, pieces of shit on TV. And you're like, guy, chill out. And you have like the first dialogue that we hear are these two teenage boys walking through, and you can't really hear what they're saying, but they're like, they want to break free from their shell. It's a generational thing again. And I think Schrader does a great job at kind of showing that. And I'm with you, Mark. I really like that first act of the movie where we're in Grand Rapids, because I too find that stuff interesting. And I would like to see, although I do like the ambiguousness of, like, why did Kristen run away?
Right.
Why did his wife run away? I do like that ambiguousness, but I also like that kind of comforting feeling of being in that Grand Rapids community, in wintertime. Like, you just want to hunker down and get to know these people, because I think it's interesting. I would be so far from sharing any of their beliefs, but I still find it interesting.
Yeah. Oh, I would have liked to have seen it. I just don't.
It's a different movie.
Yeah, it's a completely different movie in a lot of ways, because he's an unreliable narrator, and the movie kind of leans on that a little bit, where it's like, why did they leave? And he's like, well, here's why. And it's like, well, is that the case? Is that your perceived reason? Because again, like we've been saying, he's a man who is so tied to Calvinism that he allows it to almost dictate his daily life, which obviously, as someone who is so religious to a point that they have let it dictate everything, his religion may not have answers for daily problems, like what happens when your daughter runs away and goes and makes porn. And he has absolutely no way to deal with it, which is kind of the early on scenes in Los Angeles, where you see him just kind of stumbling around the streets.
Roaming around, yeah.
Right, trying to figure out anything. And then, he's having breakdowns in front of these sex workers, and they're like, what is going on here? And he's like, well, I'm looking for this girl. And it's like, do you understand that these people just don't care?
Right,
they don't care as much as you. They don't care at all. And like, it's like that weird, like the thing about grace coupled with just Paul Schrader's inherent nihilism. That's interesting. Because again, it's just another juxtaposition of this holier than thou guy going into what he probably believes, he's a pilgrim in an unholy land. And, he's wandering the, lascivious streets of LA late at night looking for his daughter, who just, again, happens to be in porn, which further exacerbating his problems, because his church doesn't have any answers for that.
Yeah, he gets hit with a harsh dose of reality because he's been so cloistered up in this community. In Grand Rapids, it's not a small town, but it's still like this Calvinist community. Like, that's just their little bunker that they've been in. And then he breaks out of that and then goes to LA, and he's like, what the fuck is this place? Holy shit. And it's like, dude, this is the world. Like, this is happening all over. And even like when Peter Boyle comes back to, and Peter Boyle's real fucking gross in this movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Funny, but he's disgusting.
Yeah, he is.
When he comes back to Grand Rapids and takes Jake to that shut down porno
I'm watching
theater.
it right now.
Yeah,
It's
Jake's
that
you're
scene.
watching the porno right now. Yeah.
No,
Jake's
I'm watching the movie.
No, Jake's
watching
like
something right now.
he didn't even realize this was in his own town.
Yeah.
You know, he's so shut up in his own little community that he gets, hit with reality real hard. And it's not like he was like, eased into it. It's boom, you're in the sex trade. Holy shit, look out.
I just realized if you want more of the Calvinist thing, just go watch Paul Schrader's First Reformed, because that's
true. That's
what
true.
the whole fucking movie's about.
Yeah.
But Anthony, you mentioned early on that scene where he's walking through his factory and that garish display that I guess they're going to take on the road to a convention or something. And it just seemed like an odd scene to me. And as I was watching the movie yesterday and noticing how, it's winter in Grand Rapids, so we've got whites and we've got lots of browns.
Gray.
And the houses are just, it's 70s, so they're brown and yellow and green, that wonderful 70s green. And then that you've got that shot of blue, and it's like basically a foreshadowing of the garish colors. Once he gets to LA, it's just nothing but reds and bright greens and bright blues, and
it's gorgeous.
Every rap parlor or porno shop that he goes into is just absolute. If they weren't real places, man, the set design is just absolutely perfect.
Absolutely convincing. That scene is another great example, though, of him sort of exerting his power, showing that yes, he can be a real asshole, but he's, again, not a bad guy. But he's still like, he's hinting it's overbearing. That's a good word. He makes her, he makes his secretary think that it's her idea that it might be overbearing. And we see, this guy, okay, he's a sneaky asshole. That's how it is with him. But that's as far as we go when it comes to why did Kristen run away? Like, how bad was it? But I do like that. Just the color alone, I can see it in my head right now, set against that backdrop of Grand Rapids, where it's just, it's after a snowstorm. The streets are sloppy and slushy and gross and muddy, and it's just real dull looking there. And even a couple months after she runs away, they're on the front porch and he's sitting, staring out, like the guys are staring out into nothing. It's an empty highway and bare trees and like a field you could see beyond where they're doing some construction or digging something up. And like, it's just ugly and there's nothing. And then we get to LA and it's sunny and bright. Granted, it's, 4 or 5 months later, but still it's just like, oh gosh, this is nice. This is really nice. But then we get into the scuzzy part, which is, I love those scuzzy, neon drenched, gross streets full of, diseased people.
What about the shot of George C. Scott standing in front of that sign?
Which one?
The hustler sign.
The hustler sign.
Oh, the hustler. Yeah. Think Pink or whatever.
Think Pink. Yeah.
Think Pink with
And
his sunglasses on.
Who happens to be the cashier at one of our porno shops? Chris?
Yeah. Who was that?
Tracy Walter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We just
She had something lodged in her throat. Debris and stuff get in there. Bodies are floating down the river.
and oddly enough, he's in Blue Collar, another Paul Schrader film from the year before, in a similarly small role.
So we were talking about him on the last episode.
Yeah. I like that we don't know really why she leaves, other than, like most teenagers, I'm not happy at home. We don't have a revelation that he beat her or something horrible.
Right.
It's just that incapable of showing love, and now she feels loved. Is she really getting love from these people? Absolutely not.
Do they even know how to love, though, to be fair?
Look at these porno guys that they show in this movie, the producer and the director and everybody. That first scene where or the first porno shoot scene where Peter Boyle shows up and just decides to hang out and watch him screw. And I have never been on a porno set, but of the movies that I've seen that attempt to show pornos being shot, this to me feels the most real and desperate. In
absolutely.
some cheap rented motel room, the door is wide open.
That was a rundown motel. That was like a closed motel, even.
There's people. I'm actually watching that scene. I'm catching up. I'm watching the movie as we go here, so we're hitting the same
the height of professionalism, everyone.
And it's perfect. I mean,
I like
Boogie Nights.
I like the director. The guy who plays the director.
He's great.
Right.
They're all great, and it's like pitch perfect. It's Boogie Nights before Boogie Nights.
Right.
Way before Boogie Nights.
I like Ramada, the porno producer.
Yeah.
It's like, $50,000. Get that out of here. Try $2.5 million.
But that's great. I mean, that whole scene of him up in that office, they're counting their profits from every city, and you just think about that world back then where that was it. This was a few years before video, and so what did it do in Dallas? What did it do in Philly? What did it do in Boston? And they're doing all these numbers, and 50,000 is nothing. But I like that leads. George C. Scott is a deer in the headlights when he gets to LA, but he adapts pretty quickly. And as he's
so weird in jeans and like a casual button down, it's like, oh my God, you never see him like that.
No, he's looking real smooth, LA smooth.
He picks up the look at first to kind of help him along when, once people point out the tie, to loosen up the tie. So next he's got the satin shirts, and then he does the whole producer get up. But that leading to that point where he's like, none of these people are going to help me. Like you said, Chris, they don't care about this. If they had seen her, they wouldn't care and they wouldn't remember. And you're getting in the way of their business, their livelihood.
Right.
This girl needs a tip, or, the money you paid up front doesn't come to me. I need something for this to be worth my while. And finally gets the idea, I can't keep looking for these people. I need them to come to me. And I love that he makes that turn and figures out the business enough to go, okay, these people want money. They're doing this for money. They're not doing this necessarily because they enjoy sex or whatever. They're in, however they got here. We all unfortunately need money to survive. And I mean, it's brilliant. And then that's how he finds Jism Jim. And that's that's his first real lead.
Mark's been waiting the entire episode to say Jism Jim.
And big black Dick, or Big Dick Black, or whatever his name is.
But let's be honest here. Big Black Dick is just
whichever,
My wife, Big Black Dick.
My wife came home right when that scene was playing, and she's like, "Oh, it's Richard Pryor." And I said, "No, it's not Richard Pryor." I said, "That's the guy from 227." I said, "Richard Pryor was in Blue Collar. This is a different guy." She's like, "Oh yeah, it's Regina King's dad from 227."
Yeah, he now to be fair, this is, I think, Paul Schrader and Mark. When we talked Rolling Thunder, we talked a lot about Paul Schrader and kind of the demons that he's battled his entire life. And I think this is Paul Schrader's idea of like the sex work industry, because you read something like, Bill Landis's Sleazoid Express, or I had another book title on my brain, but I just lost it. But stuff like that, where you get, or like listen to the Rialto Report, for instance, and you get a real sense. Of course, most of that is East Coast kind of porno industry. And so, but we do get, I feel like the 8mm kind of roughy stuff that Kristen has gotten into seems, fairly accurate and very real. And then like the smut film that he goes to see, where those two people are killed on screen.
A snuff film, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems real fucked up, and like, something that it's like you have to get into the back room of some seedy store to see the donkey show, right? And they watch
Secret
this
handshake.
Yeah, snuff film. But it is, it is a really interesting picture of West Coast porno shooting during this time.
I'm sure he had a pretty good handle on the porno scene in LA. Just having read a little bit about Schrader's life and what he was doing when he was in LA.
Sure.
When he wrote Taxi Driver. If nothing else, I'm sure he frequented many of the places that are shown in the film.
Right. Yeah, the picture, that, and again, who knows how accurate this book is, but like, Easy Riders of Raging Bulls, the picture that Bliskin paints of Schrader seems like a real incel type of guy, in the early 70s and then coming into the 80s, like trying to assert himself into the scene and saying, this is how I want things to be. This is who I am. I'm not going to compromise. This is how I see the world. And so I really love watching his films. All of his films, honestly. But like, especially this time period where, again, like Mark, you and I talked about, like a guy, Schrader, that is trying to process his place in the world, his place, not in the world, but in Hollywood, and what he wants to be and how he needs to get there. And so a lot of these films, hardcore included, is a guy kind of just spewing out his thoughts onto screen. And you're like, oh my God, this guy needs therapy.
Yeah. Travis Bickle is the epitome of an incel.
Right.
Which
the original incel.
Oh, yeah.
One of the original screen incel.
One of them. And I think that's something that maybe in your 20s, like I didn't recognize that when I first saw the film. You get engrossed in the, not even necessarily in the character, but in the filmmaking of Martin Scorsese. And it's one of those complaints that people throw at Scorsese. He makes this stuff seem glamorous. And it's like, if you can't get past the packaging that it's in and realize, okay, this guy is not a hero. He got lucky that he killed mobsters. If you can't get past that part of the movie, then I guess he's going to play out as the hero cabbie to you. But having this character of the Calvinist middle-aged dad, as opposed to a Travis Bickle, I think is what I was surprised about and really enjoy in this. And it's, like I said, it's just that part of that trilogy where we have the Vietnam vet, or we have the young girl in sex work. And then who's the star of this one though? Is it vet? Is it the girl? Is it, so I don't know. It's just a fascinating group of movies to think about together.
Absolutely.
Well, I think for me, another movie you could put in here, and it's not a Paul Schrader film, and I'm surprised none of us have mentioned it yet, maybe because it's too on the nose. But obviously 8mm is, you could double feature this in 8mm. I think people might be like, well, these are the same fucking movie. And
right.
They are, but they aren't. Hardcore is essentially, I think it's a much more nuanced film, and 8mm is much more a film that is 7 light, but that's for a number of reasons, namely the script being written by the same person who wrote the script for 7. That helps. But Andrew Kevin Walker's script lends a lot, and the idea obviously lends a lot of inspiration to this, because again, it's kind of the same thing. Instead of a Calvinist dad, it's a private detective hired by him. It's the Peter Boyle character that you're following in 8mm, essentially, as opposed to the people that hire him. Which, again, to your point, Mark, I appreciate that you have this Calvinist character out of water in LA looking for his daughter. That makes a more, I don't know if it's a more interesting film, but I think it's a more interesting concept on the face of it than just the private detective looking for someone in the sex trade. Obviously, it's still, I still think 8mm is a perfectly fine film, but I will say the climax of that movie works better than this one. But also, that movie's climax makes more sense given that movie is closer to an action movie. not all the way action movie, but it cops more from action movies than this does. This is not noir, but it's kind of it's not a Western, but it has some of those moments where it's like
Sure.
it's kind of Western-esque.
Yeah.
It's
right?
the searchers again, just like Taxi Driver. He's pulling from that, going and finding the lost child that's with the
Right.
savages now. It's sort of the same. I mean, that's why I always see these two movies together now. And yeah, I mean, 8mm, I've watched it a good handful of times and enjoy it for what it is. And I think every time somebody stumbles upon 8mm or does any reading about it, they're probably going to get led to this movie.
Right.
Like they did in hardcore. It's similar to hardcore, this and this, and it is, and it takes the same kind of path. And although you're going to have somebody with a private detective who, like the Peter Boyle character in this, isn't going to be necessarily as surprised or shocked at even the smallest sexual deviance, or just even the fact that these rap parlors exist, or that porno shops exist where you go in. I mean, he just saw the scene where he goes in where Tracy Walter works and there's just dildos everywhere. And he's probably never even imagined that world.
Right.
And Tracy Walters doesn't want his money, which
take your 50 cents back.
Yeah, I like that. I don't want your 50 cents. We don't need your 50 cents. I like that. Again, it shows that while he has what he believes to be a moral high ground, the morality in this world is vastly skewed to the point where they want nothing to do with someone who claims to be, on a moralistic high ground. They're like, he's like, fuck you. I don't want anything to do with you, Mr. Holier than thou.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's, I had written an essay a few years ago for a site where I compared hardcore to cruising, and how you have these two movies of sort of men on a mission type of movie, right? But they're men who come from a certain ideal that they're used to, how they should be, how men should be, and they get thrown into this world where things are completely upside down, and they start questioning things, and they don't know what the fuck they're thinking, and how they should be now that they've seen this other side of the world. And it makes for a really, really great double feature because both films are great. And then, you kind of course, Cruising's ending is entirely ambiguous, which is genius. And that's sort of the ambiguousness I wanted from Hardcore's ending, where, it's ambiguous, the ending in Hardcore, but I wanted more. I really have no idea if she's going to go back with Dad or not, or if she's alive. But I love the idea. I love stories, movies, TV shows of especially men getting thrown into a world that they didn't even know about, and then they have to start questioning their own lives, and they go through this existential crisis. And I love watching men squirm.
men having to question their masculinity is
absolutely
is always entertaining for me as well. And this movie has a lot of that. When I was thinking about this, I have never seen Cruising. It's on my list of movies to watch.
Yeah, me too. Throw it on the books.
As a bisexual man, I have even more interest in watching it, obviously, because I would love to see the way it's represented then. But I think it's interesting the way that I'm going to say fix this movie, because again, this is us subjectively talking about it versus we have objectively talked about it, but for me subjectively, the way to fix the movie is you just cut to black after he asks her, do you want me to leave you alone? Linger on a shot of her, and then just cut it to black.
Yeah.
Don't give me the answer. Let me come to the conclusion of, has he done enough? Has he not done enough? And that I think doesn't fix the movie, but I think it would add a little bit more nuance to a film where there's nuance throughout and then nuance is abandoned so that an actor can be thrown through drywall for 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, the ending of the movie, again, I appreciated watching George C. Scott chase Mark Alamo through the sets of this porno kind of studio, I guess.
Yeah. Dungeon.
But, yeah,
really cheap studio.
Yeah, but ultimately, as much fun as that was, the film's emotional climax is severely undercut. I think what they do with Susan Hubley at the end is smart, where she just kind of goes off and leaves. I think that's very smart.
I love that. Yeah. I love her.
That's super
part of the
heartbreaking.
ending is yes, absolutely.
Right.
It's super heartbreaking because again, ultimately his daughter is in many ways a MacGuffin, right? I mean, ultimately it's really about him finding someone who he should have taken back with him, right? I mean, that's what this movie's about, right? It's about him finding someone who could have been his daughter, and he turns his back on her for someone who turned his back on him. That's, and I think that part is better. That part is better than the actual ending, but I think that those questions and that kind of conclusion that she comes to, that he comes to, it's kind of like the, Jack, it's Chinatown moment. It's like, that's just the way it is. I mean, that's what Peter Boyle says to him. It's like, that's just the way it is, man. She's gone.
Go home, cowboy.
Yeah, go home, dude. Like, that's just the way it is here, man. That's Chinatown. That's, whatever. Where is it in LA? Is it Studio City? Is it Culver City where they shoot all the porno in LA? Is it Studio City? It's in the Valley somewhere.
The Valley.
Yeah. The Valley where they shoot all the porno. But it's like, it's the Valley, kid. Like that, go back to your home and don't worry about it, because the moment you're on the plane, you won't. And that's the sad part.
Yeah. And it's the perfect encapsulation of the Calvinist idea, where the predestination is if God, and I love this tenet of Calvinism, where if God is infinite and omnipotent, then he knows, and I'm using he here just because that's what we do. They know from the beginning of time who's already saved. And so it's kind of like, sorry, girl.
Yeah.
You're not one of the saved.
Lost cause. You're a lost cause, right?
Yeah.
And
the hubris, man, of that is insane to me.
And my daughter is chosen. And what was one of the acronyms that kind of refers to that?
TULIP.
TULIP. The unconditional election, certain people chosen from the beginning of time. So that's her, not Nikki, not the Susan Hubley character. And so it's kind of like that he's making his choice there, like you've both implied, and it's his daughter because she's a chosen one.
Predestination.
So, yeah, that is a fascinating idea to me. And that's when you start kind of things start going in this circle of, okay, well, if somebody had these thoughts, if we're saying that God's omnipotent and infinite, then he already knows who's saved. So what's the point of good works? What's the point of this? What's the point of that? And you get into this weird,
because in Calvinism it doesn't matter. It's predetermined. Either you're going to heaven or you're going to hell.
Right. It's grace is, you're saved by grace, and that's it. There's nothing else to do, and you can't deny it. And, but yet they send out missionaries. So it's like, well, why? If these people aren't supposed to be saved, why do you bother with missionaries?
And go one step further. The saved cannot unsave themselves. There's nothing that the saved can do to force God to unsave them either, which is, boy, if I've ever heard of a golden parachute, boy, there it is.
Yeah.
God says I'm saved, and there's no amount of sinning that I can do to undo that. Like, boy, that's convenient. It's mighty convenient.
Imagine Jake getting up to the pearly gates of heaven, and who's there to meet him? Big Dick Black. He's like, are you fucking kidding me? What? Really? You're one of them?
Susan Hubley's there, and she's just like, well, you knew this is how this was going to end.
But she's Venusian.
Right. To your point, Mark, I tend to prefer referring to God, if God does exist, which again, your mileage will vary on that, as a woman. Because as far as I'm concerned, the amount of people and the people that were making the rules have been men, and what better possible end goal would there be to have God be a woman and every single man who made rules and or set the rules down have to realize how the big oh shit moment is the oh shit moment you can't go back on. And again, like you said, I mean, that's who knows what awaits Jake VanDorn in the end, but his Calvinist beliefs have guided him into a certain cattle chute, as it were, of life, and he is not going to stray from it, even when given the opportunity to, again, do the right thing. And when given the opportunity to do the right thing, he doesn't even do the right thing. He hits Susan Hubley and beats her up to get information out of her, showing that he really is no better than anyone else, though he would probably claim, oh, I was influenced by the environment around me and I had to do what needed to be done. And it's like, but did you? I guess you do if you know that you're saved anyways, and there's no amount of sinning that you can do to unsave yourself.
Always an excuse, right?
Yeah. The utter hubris surrounding some of the religions, and again, the way they use religion in this movie, the utter hubris of some people involved in religion will never cease to amaze me. And
I think it's
the Jake VanDorn character almost in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, and I like watching Schrader struggle with that in his films. Up until I haven't seen the card counter, but like First Reformed, he's still struggling with that, with this, he was basically raised in like a cult. Okay. And he's still struggling with that as a grown man. And I appreciate him trying to process that through his craftsmanship, through his art. And he's a goddamn great director. He's a goddamn great writer. And I appreciate him, being honest in that way, just trying to struggle through those thoughts and grow out of that kind of thinking that he was raised in. And he puts it out in hopefully a semi-healthy way in his art of cinema. And we're grateful for it. We are grateful recipients of seeing a man processing his thoughts. I think it's really interesting.
Well, and to your point, processing it is healthy regardless of how you do it. And again, I think that's obviously with the Jake VanDorn character, you see him processing it through the movie. I mean, he continues to have these conversations. You see kind of his internal struggle with it, with his beliefs. And these are the conversations that a lot of these people who are entrenched in these hyper strict religions, and there are plenty of them, these are the kind of conversations that they could benefit from. A little self-reflection through a lens of yourself or a lens of the outsider, as opposed to insular, very much secular religions. And again, you see that in this movie with the Jake VanDorn character. Anytime he sees something he doesn't understand or agree with, you can see his immediate aversion to it, because that's his character's go-to is, I don't understand it, so therefore I don't like it, and it doesn't have a place in my world.
Right.
And that thinking, like you said, Paul Schrader clearly struggles with it personally, and healthier than not is to put it on screen so that other people can see that he is not only processing it, but he is not alone, and that they are not alone in a similar struggle.
Absolutely.
After hearing that, I'm thinking this could very easily be a tale of him and his George C. Scott is basically his dad in this, and he's the daughter. He went to LA, didn't get into pornos, but it might as well have been.
That character at the beginning has that thing about, they went to LA to make this. I hate them even more now. Stay away.
That's, I don't know why I hadn't really had that thought before, but it makes sense to me that it doesn't have to be porno. It's just getting into the movies. Of course, this makes it it would be less interesting if she just went and acted in regular movies. It wouldn't be that. But yeah, so
interesting. It's an interesting. Again, it does speak to kind of why the ending is not as fatalistic as it might have been otherwise.
Sure.
I was thinking about that too when you guys were talking about endings, and I think there's movies that do this. You could almost have a little coda at the end where he wakes up in the motel and she's gone again. And it's sort of like that Taxi Driver ending where, okay, now it's it's happening again, or it's going to happen again. If it was more overt in that regard, where they go back, walk through the motel door, and then you see the next morning he wakes up and she's gone. Now, stop it there. You don't know. Maybe she's just gone down to the diner at the hotel.
I was going to say, and have him stick his head out and she's getting a soda from the machine.
But leave that part out, because then you're still, so you don't know. Maybe. But
I was writing it the way they wrote the ending in this movie, which is got to give. It's weird for as ambiguous as a lot of the movies coming out of the 70s tend to be. The lack of ambiguity in this movie is a little surprising. Yeah, it is surprising.
Yeah, I forgot. This was the second or third time I watched it, and I always have in my head she ain't going back with him.
Right.
But they imply that she will. I just rolled up to the Ed Begley Jr. scene as I'm watching this while we're talking.
Yeah, he's in this movie, isn't he? For like a minute.
Yeah. Such a small part. My God.
I love it.
I forgot when I was rewatching. I was like, my God, he's barely in this. But it brought us together to be able to talk about it.
Mark picked all the movies that Mark picked this month, since this is the final episode this month of the Begley on Begley experience, the Begley on Begley project. This is the final Ed Begley movie of the month. And this is the least he's given to do of all the things I've seen this month, and no Southern accent. I'm disappointed.
Soldier in the porno within a film here, and I just love it. I think I was utterly shocked the first time I watched this and went, what the fuck is Ed Begley Jr. doing in this movie? Because he's way down on the credit list on IMDb.
Yeah.
I mean, way down. And so it wasn't like one of those things.
I mean, it could very well have been Schrader needed somebody and just called up, hey, Ed, can you come over for...
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
For an hour.
Yeah. I mean...
Is there any nudity in your movie called Hardcore, Paul? Otherwise, I'm not going to do it.
It's just it's one of those weird things. If he was, and this is 70, I mean, he'd been in quite a bit already by then, but it's just like, I'm trying to think of a situation that for today's audience to see somebody pop up in a tiny role like this. And it's not like Ed Begley Jr. has ever been the hugest star in the world, or was at this time. But I just wonder, like, people when they saw this then, did they have the same kind of reaction I did? Like, oh shit, that's Ed Begley Jr. What in the world is he doing in this movie? And why is his part so small?
Well, to be fair, we don't know how big his part is.
Yeah, that's true. We know they don't actually show.
We know how big Dick Black is, though. That's for sure.
There's a weird.
Go ahead.
They just showed the cop again. That Jake, I guess it's Peter Boyle's character, is talking to at the beginning, and I noticed this time he's got this weird lump on his head.
Oh, he's got that,
but his eyes all red. And I looked that actor up, and he doesn't have. So I'm just curious. This has nothing.
Probably
to do
got
with
fucked up before the shoot somehow.
Yeah, and Schrader's just like, great, perfect, love it.
Blew a bunch of blood vessels in his eye and has like a huge, egg on his noggin.
Yeah, it's weird.
And Schrader's like, okay, I guess whatever.
We can't do anything about it. We can't put Hal Williams in this movie twice.
I don't think it's makeup. And what would the point be of it being makeup? And it's just like, oh man, this thing fell on my head yesterday. Fuck it. Who cares? We're shooting your scene today.
So, Anthony, I'm curious because I've asked everybody else who's been on the show, and since you're a newcomer here, I'm curious, and we're still talking about Ed Begley here. Have you seen, and if you have, what are your thoughts on Transylvania 6-5000?
On my watch list for a very long time, but I haven't watched it yet because I'm not a huge fan of like super broad comedy, and
well, you're in for a treat.
I have a feeling this is an extremely broad comedy. I could be wrong, but so it's not like at the top.
You even want to call it funny.
Okay.
You've seen it, right, Mark?
I have not seen it, and for the same kind of reasons, it looked really silly and ridiculous to me when it came out. However many years ago that was, and I just have never gotten around. I think I feel like I would be disappointed in Jeff Goldblum for having made this movie, and I don't want to tarnish his image in my eyes.
I think you're going to be more. I think once you watch it, you'll probably be more disappointed that Ed Begley's in the movie. To be perfectly honest with you, given that this was Begley on Begley month, and I know your love for Ed Begley, and it is a role where he is the second lead of the movie.
Yeah.
He is second build or co-build with Jeff Goldblum. It is. The movie was produced by the Dow Chemical Company, and no, I'm not joking. That is a real thing. I'm not a huge fan of it, but again, I bring it up because there are people, they have been on this show, I am friends with them, who like the movie. I am in the minority of people that do not like the movie, but it is the only other, I think it might be one of, if not the only time Ed Begley Jr. is the star, co-star, double, second build star of your film.
It doesn't happen very often. I can think of that, She-Devil, and Meet the Applegates. And those are the only ones where, he's on the cover. He's the second, third build on the credits. I'm sure there are others, but I just love the fact that he pops up in these weird places. And this for this month of movies that I picked might just be the weirdest.
It's definitely the most varied list of things that I couldn't have. Again, we went from a college student to
Ruffle. College student.
And then what was the next movie?
Cockfighter.
What was the one before Cockfighter?
Now You See Him, Now You Don't, where he was Druffle in the Kurt Russell film.
No, there was one in between Now You See Him, Now You Don't and Cockfighter.
No, when that Cockfighter and then Citizens Band was last week.
Oh, okay. God, I don't.
Where he's the priest.
Yeah.
And,
Kurt Russell, by the way, married to Susan Hubley at the time.
Yes.
So that could be it too. Like maybe he was, he was buddies with Kurt Russell. He could have been there on the set. Schrader said, "Come over. You're tall. We've got this really large uniform. Kurt Russell's too short." Interesting.
Susan Hubley's great in this, though.
Yeah, she is really
good. Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
Good.
She was not in enough things.
No, I would agree.
Her part in probably the only one thing that I remember her from as a kid would be Escape from New York, and I would have had no idea who she was, but she ain't in that enough.
No.
Well, she also is in something we've been trying to watch, Mark.
Yeah.
She plays Priscilla Presley in that Elvis movie. We're going to talk about it at some point.
Yeah.
We keep bringing the damn thing up.
We need to now because of all this stuff. Tracy Walter's probably in that too. Who knows?
Have you guys seen Vice Squad from Gary Sherman, 1982? It's a Wings Hauser vehicle, and he plays a just the nastiest, most horrific pimp. And Susan Hubley plays a prostitute who just is beat to hell from Wings Hauser. Really great, exciting 80s cop movie.
Yeah, no, I get that and Vigilante confused in my brain. I've seen Vigilante, but I haven't seen Vice Squad.
Yeah, Susan Hubley is great in Vice Squad.
Interesting. She's great in this. She pairs really well with George C. Scott. And like you mentioned, Anthony, he is such a presence that you need someone just as strong as him or stronger. And she really rises to the occasion. And you feel for her. You really feel for her, especially at the end of the film where, like we said, she just gets thrown right back out onto the street.
She doesn't get saved like Iris in Taxi Driver. She's left to her own devices. It's funny because I struggle with George C. Scott in this film a little bit. I feel like he was miscast, and I don't know who I would rather see in it, but there's something about him that just makes me think angry old man. And I want a little more humanity in a little softer touch in this, but I enjoy him for the most part in this, but all I can think about is stuff like Patton and Dr. Strangelove, where he can have that over the top ability that sometimes does the famous turn it off scene. There's a part of that where I feel like this is not genuine.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that throws me.
It's definitely George C. Scott doing his George C. Scott outburst that he's
turn it off.
I feel like I needed a little more. Not that he couldn't be gruff, but there has to be
A
the
little softer
ability
edge.
to be soft. And I think that scene is what it's like. I don't think he quite got it on that take. Was there another take? But
Well, Warren Beatty originally wanted to play the lead.
yeah, but
I don't buy that.
Yeah, that I don't.
If so, Warren Beatty said that he wanted it to be instead of his character's daughter, his wife.
Yeah,
and I don't like. I'm not.
That makes
sure.
no sense.
Yeah, that story is just strange. Now, if you're talking Ned Beatty,
yeah,
I mean Ned Beatty might have worked.
Now that I could see.
Yeah, like that's. I mean, that's. It still has that a little bit of the edge of angry, but that humanity.
He can do angry.
But the humanity that Ned Beatty just has in his face.
He does have that softer side. Yeah.
He can do. I think he can do both. I don't buy George C. Scott as soft in nearly anything that he does, and that's just me relating to things that I've seen him in. Not that he doesn't necessarily pull it off in this. Like I said, except for maybe the turn it off, the most famous scene of the movie, but there's just something that makes me feel like I don't quite buy it through parts of the film. I don't know who I'd rather see do it, but that's along with the ending. That's sort of my one complaint about the film.
Sure.
I could have believably seen George C. Scott going further as a character because of who he is as an actor. He could have gone to a gun store and gotten a gun and shot some of these characters, and I might have believed that. I don't know if that's not the character that this movie, like you said, Mark, needs. And so I don't think they needed that actor either. I think they could have gone. I mean, we all know the direction that they went in for the character that they wanted him to be, but he's just maybe too. It's just George C. Scott. I mean, he's almost just kind of playing the character we know him to play.
Right.
The character we expect him to play. The character he has made a career of playing, which is seemingly just a shade different in one direction of himself, but the same color as who he probably actually was if you read about him. So, I mean, that's the thing. It comes down to the character that he's playing. I do think he gets in the, like you said, Mark, I think he gets in the way of that character being better than it would have been, because it's like anything else. It would be like if they remade this movie and put Robert Downey Jr. in it. It's not Robert Downey Jr. playing a character. It's Robert Downey Jr. in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, it's not George C. Scott playing a character. It's George C. Scott in this movie. And he's just kind of doing the George C. Scott stuff, which is really good, obviously.
Yeah.
But I do agree. I think it could have been better. And I think, again, it would have, if it had been a actor who was a little bit more, had a little bit more of a softer quality to him, the ending may have worked better even. I might have believed the ending, but I'm not sure if George C. Scott doesn't lend evidence to me supporting the way the movie ends, but I don't think it does a good job of giving me a reason to think that they thought that. I think they just put the ending on screen. But I feel like they just kind of didn't know how to end the movie, frankly. They're just like, what do we do now? George C. Scott's just a little too George C. Scott for this movie, is really what it is.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. I love The Changeling, and you brought that film up earlier, Anthony, and I kind of feel the same way about him in that. There needed to be something softer about that character who's a pianist who lost his wife and daughter in this horrific crash
right in front of him, right?
Yeah, that they show like full on in that movie. I don't know. Maybe it's just I have things about actors sometimes where I can't get past something, that I don't think he does anything in this movie that helps me get past my preconceived notions of him.
Oh yeah.
So, and I'm not saying it's a fault of the movie or a fault of his. I have a hard time seeing him as anything other than this. And I think in this film, I needed a little bit more of that, where it just kind of slips out that soft side, where he actually, I believe that he cares about Nikki instead of just sort of putting up with her.
Which he does, which is the way it ends up coming off ultimately.
Right.
Yeah. I liked this movie though. I'm glad you suggested it, Mark, because having never seen it before, I did still enjoy it.
Yeah, it's I think it's fascinating. If nothing else, I think it's a fascinating merger of two diametrically opposed worlds.
Yeah.
And you could do it a bunch of different ways. And this is just, Paul Schrader's way based on the split life that he had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Dick Sargent's in the fucking movie. How many times do you see Dick Sargent in a movie? I can't think of a movie. I can't think of anything other than Bewitched that I've seen Dick Sargent in. That was the other big surprise for me the first time I watched it. I was like, holy shit, he made movies after Bewitched that weren't Disney movies. I don't know if he was in Disney movies. I was happy to see him. I'll stop talking now.
I'm trying to think of the movies I watched this month, which I enjoyed the most. I think it might be Cockfighter, though. Since you were here for the whole thing, Mark, I think it might be Cockfighter.
Yeah, if I had to rank them, that would be definitely would be on top. This I think this might be second for me because of the fascinating aspect, and then Citizens Band, and then the Disney film. Just because,
and the Disney film's not bad.
It's not bad. It's not something I'm going to go back and watch again.
No,
These three movies I'll watch.
Movie. Yeah, it's a kids movie. I mean, diminishing returns. I've seen it now. I would probably be more inclined to watch the other Dexter Riley movies than I would be to revisit the one that I have seen already.
Yes. I think that's a good way to go about it.
So to close this episode out, Anthony, what is your preferred Ed Begley Jr. role? I'm going to spring a question on you.
Oh my God.
Or actually, better question. What Ed Begley Jr. role springs to mind for you? Just right off the top of your head.
Off the top of my head. Holy shit.
Well, his turn in hardcore, of course.
yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, I can't think of movies so we watch, I have two little boys. Well, not little, but younger. And we watch a show called Big City Greens, and he does a voice in Big City Greens. But I mean, I love Ed Begley Jr. in Best in Show as the kind of hotel manager who puts up Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy in like the janitor's closet as their hotel room. It's so funny. And, I think his style of acting fits best in that sort of, in that milieu, that crew, that Christopher Guest crew.
The Chris Guest world.
Right. Because he can play that sort of awkward improvisational quality so well, because first and foremost, I think he's a comedic actor, and I think he just bounces off so well with those other actors in that troupe.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, like his, outside of the stuff I watched this month, his stuff with Chris Guest is what sticks out to me.
Yeah.
And first 3 seasons, even the first 2 of Arrested Development, where he plays, I don't remember his character's name, but he has alopecia. And so there's the constant gag about his eyebrows flying off. And then I forget what the other thing is. And they call him an alpaca a couple times. Yeah. So, I remember him from that show. I mean, that show kind of, again, in and of itself has its own issues, especially with diminishing returns.
Right.
I really like him. I really like him in Arrested Development, which is me complimenting Arrested Development is shocking in and of itself, I think, at this point. That's the show's fault, though.
That all came rushing back when you started talking about that. I totally forgot about that.
With his eyebrows, and they talk about his eyebrows that look like caterpillars and stuff. Yes. Yeah, because he's like I think, isn't the joke he's like driving in a sports car and he leaves and then he comes back and his eyebrows are like fucked up because he had the top down. So yeah. What about you, Mark? What about you, Mark Begley? Well, what is your Ed Begley Jr. role?
My first thought is always St. Elsewhere, because I watched that. I believe we watched that show from beginning to end. So it started in 82, I think, and ran until 89 or 87, and watched it every week. Loved that ensemble cast. Loved that there was a guy named Begley in the cast, and liked him. If I had seen him in anything prior to that, I probably wouldn't have really consciously thought about it. But yeah, I like his comedy. He pops up on Portlandia from time to time. And those are always, it's that kind of quirky, dry wit. And he's very good at that. And actually the only Christopher Guest movie that I've seen him in, and it's not technically a Christopher Guest movie, is Spinal Tap. I haven't watched any of his improv movies, but I know he's a part of many of those. Yeah. So yeah, that's fascinating to me, that those things like being buddies with Paul Schrader and being in small parts in 3 of his films, being, part of the Christopher Guest troupe, showing up on these weird comedy shows and, selling cleaning products that are eco-friendly.
Eco-friendly, yeah.
He is a big eco-friendly guy, which is he was eco-friendly before eco-friendly was cool.
Yeah. Yep. And got a lot of shit for it.
Yeah. Isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, not that I want to get too far into it, but St. Elsewhere is the show with the the trolliest finals shot of all time, right?
The whole show was a dream. All 7 or 8 seasons was a dream. Yikes. And I actually don't remember if I saw that when it aired then, because I probably would have flipped over the dining room table or something. But that's like, it's even beyond, Who Killed Bobby on Dallas. And that was a dream for 2 whole seasons or whatever. It's like the whole fucking thing was a dream.
And
Crazy.
then I think that I believe that the Tommy Westfall thing then extends into other shows as well, because there are crossover characters that were on St. Elsewhere that went on to be on other things. And I think through some crossover characters, somehow the X-Files is connected.
There's a metaverse. Yeah.
Yeah. The
X-Files it's actually not a dream.
Richard Belzer, I think, is the.
It's not a dream. It were the fabrications of an autistic child. So it wasn't technically a dream, but it was like, he has this play set with doctors in the hospital and he basically created the show in his head.
Well, at least Homicide: Life on the Street is one of the shows, because Ed Begley's on that show at some point. I know that much because I have a friend who's super into that show, and he mentioned it to me because he saw we were talking about Ed Begley movies. He's like, he's in Homicide in an episode, and I was like, oh god, it has to do with his character from that other show, doesn't it?
He's going to be on. You're going to get to him on Columbo. I think it was. I don't know if it's an episode of Columbo or if it was one of the TV movies, but he is on, and it's not listed on his credits on IMDb. I actually had to go to the Columbo page and find that episode and see him listed on it. So at some point you're going to see him again for your Columbo show.
In Columbo. So, Anthony, on my show, we do skip it or watch it because, star rating doesn't necessarily give whether or not people should watch the movie. Sure. So would you suggest people skip or watch Hardcore?
Oh, my God. Watch it, for God's sakes. Watch Hardcore. Yes.
With the kids and the grandparents.
Your whole
family movie night, man. Family movie night. Yeah.
And here's Susan Hubley, and what is she doing? What about you, Mr. Begley?
Oh, watch it. Yeah. I well, I shouldn't say that. I don't pick movies. I don't recommend. Definitely don't do that on my show, generally speaking.
Right.
I'm not going to make somebody watch a movie that I don't like. So I made you watch 4 movies this month, all of which I like it to varying degrees. And this is one of the ones that's high up on the list.
What a conscientious human being you are. You won't make me watch movies that aren't good.
That's your job. You give me those movies, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
What I
fucking watched.
What I don't give is what I end up doing most of the time is picking movies that I've never seen. Yeah. That's the problem. I could have vouch for the quality of a movie if I've never seen it.
Right, and I could have gone that route with this, even just with sticking with Ed Begley, because there's a ton I haven't seen, and the only one that I did pick was Citizens Band, and I felt that was a pretty safe bet.
Well, I wouldn't have held it against you if it hadn't been good. It's not your fault that the movie's bad. It's not your fault I didn't like it. Oh, yeah. No, Mr. Begley, I think you did a pretty good job this month. I enjoyed this movie a lot. I would suggest people check it out. It was definitely what I was expecting, and yet at the same time, it wasn't. And I think that was both, in a lot of ways, more ways than not, a good thing. But there were a couple things wasn't a huge fan of. But otherwise, it was a pretty good movie. Definitely enjoyed it. And you did a good job this month picking a bunch of Ed Begley movies. Didn't know how the month was gonna end up, but we're here now and you did a good job. So
Hey, I could just stick with this every year. I mean, he's got 330 something credits. So
he's a real working actor, as they would say. Yeah. So yeah, on that note, let's take a break and we'll play a preview for the first Culture Cast of Mike White March.
一个好的故事，从预备好的酒开始。走，你做咩？
維生，你對巫術認識咁深，我有冇得救？
血就係巫術之中最神秘同埋最複雜，亦都係最犀利一種。
鬼仔講係用咗8個細路仔血嚟到煉成嘅，佢哋會飛行吸血，擋者必死。
That's right. On the first Culture Cast, Mike White March, on Mike White March, we're going to be talking about The Seventh Curse. And what is the theme for Mike White March this year but Chow Yun-Fat movies? Yes, if you were wondering.
Another blind spot for me.
Yeah, I was about to say same for me. I'm Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Pirates of the Caribbean 3. That is about as... And, I guess I was going to say he was in a Star Wars movie, but no, that was Donnie Yen who was in a Star Wars movie. Yeah. Not Chow Yun-Fat. Yeah, Mike is the Hong Kong action movie guy. So, and I guess Hong Kong movie guy in general in a lot of ways. So all Chow Yun-Fat, all March long. I'm going to be kicking it off with The Seventh Curse. We will be talking about the movies that everybody expects us to talk about. towards the end of the month, we're going to be doing 5 movies on one podcast, talking about all of the Inspector Tequila films and or associated Inspector Tequila films, but that will be Patreon exclusive, and Mike will be joining me on all of those podcasts, including Mr. Mark Begley at some point during the month. I don't remember which episode, but you're on there.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the film was called either.
I think it's Cantonese for hardcore. It's the remake with Chow Yun-fat of Hardcore that takes place in Beijing. I'd watch that movie.
Yeah.
I would watch that movie. Who the fuck wouldn't? Jeez.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So until then, Anthony, where can people find your podcast and you on the internet if you want them to find you?
Find me. You can follow Cult Movies Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Cult Movies Pod. And then I, Anthony King, am on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at AK Donnelly. That's AKDONELLY.
Right, you, Mr. Begley. Where could people find you if they were looking for you?
People can find me at wakeupheavy.com and on social media at wakeupheavy. And if you want a little more Ed Begley and Paul Schrader, I did a quick little blue collar episode that's out already, real quick, like 18 minutes long. Well, you can listen to it while you're taking a dump.
18-minute long dump?
Well,
you'll get hemorrhoids doing that, man. Jeez.
Listen to half of
Stop looking at memes and listen to Mark.
Take an 18-minute long shit.
Your drive to work should
Mine as well be taking a shit then as well.
Right, yeah.
God.
And I might do Cat People just as an extra and try and get it out on Monday, the last day of February.
The last day of February. February we're one Tuesday short. February is such a bummer. Next year I won't give you February. I'll make sure you've got more time. This is a short month. What the fuck? I should be programming the short months. My opinion doesn't matter as much. I appreciate when other people have me watch movies because there are things that I want to watch, but I find that people's suggestions often mean more than the things I just want to watch. So,
and then that way you don't have to think about it either. Just tell me movies to watch, so I don't have to think.
Yeah, well, there is that, but I'm not going to admit that out loud. As for me, you can find me on the internet at cstachiw.com, CSTACHIW.com. That's my link tree for all the stuff that I work on. Scary Stories We Tell, like Mark mentioned, we do a Columbo podcast with Mike White of the Projection Booth, and working on some other stuff with Mike. So who knows? All kinds of stuff. You can find it all there. As for this show, Kulturecast.com, patreon.com/Kulturecast, all of those places you can go to either find more episodes or kick some money our way. Give us a review on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to it. Give us a review. It's always helpful. Anthony, thank you so much for joining me. This will not be the last time you are on this show. As long as you would like to be here, I would like to have you. And look at that, Mark. You did a double good job. Not only did you program the month, but you brought someone into the fold who...
It's like a cult,
Yay!
Anthony.
Well,
you get on Chris's show.
I get it.
Do the circuit, brother.
Unless you're an idiot, you're going to come back.
It's true. Unless you're an idiot, you will come back. But thank you for joining us. It's been a lot of fun, man. And Mark, thank you for programming the month again.
Thank you for letting me.
And we'll catch you on the next episode.